Perfect.
Right.
Yeah, let me bring out the chat. Okay. Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Victor. I am the registered migration agent in Australia. Um, and today our training will be generally about Australian student visa, and we will be focusing mainly on the higher education sector. Uh, the reason we're doing that is because there has been some drastic changes recently with the Australian Immigration Department, and they have took a big cut on the other sectors of the education application. So that makes higher education sector the remaining kind of major part of the student visa applications. So for today's agenda, we'll mainly have five parts. The first one, we'll be talking about some basic visa overview and the basic requirements. And the second one will cover the English proficiency requirement. We'll talk about it a little bit. And then we'll spend a lot of time on the major issue in all the student visa application, which is genuine student criteria. Maybe many of you have heard of it before. It used to be called a different name. It was called a GTE in the past. But in middle this year, there was a big reform with the student visa criteria, and the old GT criteria changed to the genuine student, which is GS criteria. And the last part is kind of my a little bit a small talk regarding my own experience on how to assessing the risk factors of each student, and so that you can easily get a big picture of how hard his or her visa application can be. And last, we'll have a short Q&A session to finish the training. So, the first chapter, the basic requirements. Generally, the duration of the visa lasts from the start of the course till the end of the course, usually 2 or 3 months after the end of the course. And the period also include all the holiday between the semesters or terms. And the visa comes with 48 hours work right per fortnight. That means for every 2 weeks, a student can work for 48 hours. And there are some basic requirements. First of all, the student has to have a confirmation of enrollment. That means he needs to satisfy all the academic requirement from the school and got the offer and paid for the tuition fee for the first year. And then the university will issue this document to the students as a key proof of students' intention to study. Then the students need to arrange the health insurance, or we call it Overseas Student Health Cover, short for OSHC. Uh, that health insurance will need to cover the whole time of the course. Usually, it should also cover 2 to 3 months after the course. And if in some cases the students wants to come into Australia quite early, like 2 to 3 months before the course start, sometimes that's allowed if the students get a very early grant of the visa. But before he come to Australia with the visa, he needs to ensure that the health insurance covers the time uh, from the date that he or she landed in Australia. Uh, that happens quite often in our applications in yes education's applications. Some of the students may get a visa like 2 to 3 months before the start of the semester start. but the OSHC insurance was purchased only 2 to 3 weeks before the course start. So in that case, if the student wants to come into Australia uh, earlier than that, he needs to purchase additional health insurance to cover the period from the date of landing till the date of the earlier purchased OSHC start date. And then the students should not have any criminal record. It's just a requirement, but there's no requirement on students to submit any proof for that. You just need to fill in the form saying that you have no criminal record. And then there's the age requirement. The student visa usually comes for students aged over 18. For all the students under 18, there needs to be guardianship arrangements, or in other words, welfare arrangements. There are two types of arrangements. One is to arrange a guardian to accompany the student to Australia to be with the students to until the students gets 18. Then the guardian will get a guardian visa for the time staying in Australia. That's the first kind of arrangement. The second type is just to arrange authorized accommodation and welfare arrangements for the students, such as homestay, registered homestay, and then there will be relative other relevant document issues to prove that the students has proper arrangements. Usually that documents is a letter called CAAW. It's a letter to prove that the students, although the students don't have the guardian with them, they already have the accommodation and the guardianship arranged. And then at last, there is a very useful tool for everyone to use. It's developed by the Immigration Department and it's been deployed for too many years. It's the document checklist tool. It's a tool that shows the minimum document requirement for this specific student regarding his country and the education provider. I can take you guys to the website and have a look. Let me reshare the website. Okay, can you guys see the website?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, it's a document checklist tool. You need to put in the student's country. For example, if you're from Vietnam, and you choose a university or the education provider. For example, we put it University of Sydney. And then choose the type of student you are. Usually, in most of the case, it's the last option, none of the above. Then we displace document checklist. Then we see a list of documents needed. We need identity evidence, usually a passport and COE and welfare arrangement under 18 years old. That's only for students younger than 18 years old. And parents' consent also for students under 18 years old. Health insurance, genuine student requirement. You will need a statement explaining all the genuine student criteria issues. There is a word limit here. 150 words per question. There are 5 big questions, but we'll talk about that later. You don't really have to worry about that 150 words. And then change of name if the students has a used name. You need to prove evidence on that. Usually it's name question. If usually it's a name change certificate or something issued by the local police or the local government. And then if you have a secondary applicant, that is your spouse or your children, they need to provide relevant evidence also. And if you have employment experience, you need to provide employment evidence. Usually that's employment contract or statement of service, and plus some kind of payment evidence that you're getting a salary from that entity. And then uh, these are minor evidence that we won't be usually needed. Uh, Maybe some of you have noticed that there is one thing that we are always heard about that isn't shown here. That is the financial evidence. That usually changes. The minimum requirement of financial evidence changes depending on the student's country plus the university that he or she applies for. For example, if we change the university to a very high risk provider, let's see. Yeah, let's try this one. It's a PTY Ltd, which means it's a private RTO style education provider. It should be a high risk one. Then once we have the press the display evidence, we should see something different. Actually, no. Okay. We'll change the country. Change the highest risk country, Afghanistan. There should be one. Yeah, it's here. The evidence of financial capacity. With high risk countries, there will be mandatory financial capacity evidence needed for the application. That contains 12 months of living cost and travel cost to Australia and tuition fees. We'll talk about that later. Yeah, and that's the checklist tool for the student visa application. So everyone should be noted that this tool only shows the minimum requirement. So that doesn't mean that doesn't guarantee uh, if you provide the document strictly according to the checklist, you will get a grant of the visa. That's only the minimum requirement. You still need to look at the student's personal situation and see if any additional documents are helpful. We'll talk about that in the genuine student requirement part. And then we comes to the English proficiency requirement. There has been an increase for the English proficiency requirement as for the visa. So usually for a visa to be granted, the students, if the course doesn't packaged with an English course, the student needs to get IELTS 6 for the overall scores, or TOEFL 64 or PTE 50. That's the new requirement. It used to be a little bit lower, like 0.5 lower for the IELTS. And there are some exemptions for that. For example, if you hold an Australian degree, or you have a very long time education background in an English speaking country, like the US, UK, Canada, and it doesn't include Singapore. Singapore isn't in those countries. And then, or if you have packaged your course with an English course with the correct length. We'll talk about that in the next slide. So generally, theoretically, the lowest IELTS score a student visa application can accept is 5.0. It used to be 4.5. Now it's 5.0. But it has to come with at least 20 weeks of English course packaged with the primary course. And if you get 5.5, then you better have at least 10 weeks of English course packaged, unless it is a foundation course. And if you don't have any English course packaged and you're applying directly for the bachelor course or the master course, then the minimum score should be like this. However, we have encountered some situations in this year's application. For example, if a student have studied in Canada for 4 years, he holds a bachelor degree in an English country, and the length of study in Canada is long enough, and the and the university directly waived all the academic English requirements. That means he didn't need a IELTS test or PTE test or any English test to get a COE from the university. In that case, uh, in the past, before 2024, it is okay. You just don't submit any English test evidence. But in this year's application, we've encountered several times those people, especially students, if they have undergraduate study in other English countries, they sometimes uh, get kind of scrutinized by the case officer. Case officer will send out a letter saying that, okay, I know you've been waived for the academic English requirement for your study, but I still need you to show me that you have the English ability to satisfy the visa requirement. In that case, the students has to uh, go for a test, sit in a test and redo a test and get enough scores here, relevant scores here. Otherwise, he'll need to package the course with a lot of English course to pass the visa test. Okay, then it comes to the financial capacity. Uh, so it generally needs to cover uh, four things: travel cost, 12 months of living. According to this year's recommendation, it should be around 30,000 Australian dollars. And the tuition fees for the study, and if you have any accompanying family members, their cost. And also, if you are bringing children here to Australia while you're studying, although it's very unlikely, if you succeeded, you need to prove that uh, you have the money to pay for your children's education here while you are studying. So when we were looking at the document checklist, we noticed that some countries, if um, some country and university combinations, if their risk level is low enough, financial capacity is not mandatory. So in the past, we just don't submit any financial capacity evidence. But from this year, we recommend that all the cases, uh, no matter what risk, you, every student should prepare at least a bank deposit certificate proving that you have this much money in the bank. And it is recommended that the bank deposit certificate is under the name of the student himself or the student's parents. Okay, and then we comes to uh, the genuine student criteria. So it has been there has been a big reform middle of the year this year, and the old GT criteria was changed to the new GS criteria. But generally, what we really our um, want our partners to understand this criteria, what it is. It is not exactly a criteria that once you pass you get you get a visa. It's not really it doesn't really work that way. This essentially is a legal tool for the visa officer to refuse a visa. So it's a refusal tool. What we are going to do is we trying to kind of minimize the possibility that the visa officer can get to you on some of the issue listed here in those questions. So we are looking at the first big questions in the GS criteria. So give details of the applicant's current circumstances, including ties to family, community, employment, and economic circumstances. So there are several issues. I have listed the key issues that you need to talk about, you need to discuss, you need to make arguments for in this question. So first of all, you need to talk about why you're choosing Australia rather than your home country. It's mandatory. You at least you need one sentence for that, but usually we recommend you do more. You need to show effort of research. Uh, you need to talk about more in details, like the advantages of Australia and what kind of disadvantage if you study in a home country. Then, if you have a similar course in the home country, why the reason why you don't choose the course in your home countries rather than the same course in Australia. So, oh, sorry. This is also a mandatory argument that you need to make, and you need to show the effort of your research. You need to talk about the detailed names of the course in your home country and saying that why it is not that advantageous compared to the courses in Australia. And then you need to talk about your family ties to home country, like how many people, what kind of relationship uh, you have in your home country. The reason you talk about this is some kind of proof that you have the intention to return to your home country. And the next topic is community ties. If you do have these, talk about it. It's an intention to return to home country. If you don't, then it's okay not to talk about it. And then you need to talk about your employment history if you have been employed. And later on, you maybe mention it again in the other questions. Try to try to make rationales on the alignment between your employment and your course selection. But that's for the other question. But you need to introduce your employment history here shortly first. And then you need to talk about your fundings and your general financial status and telling the case officer that you are sufficiently funded to study in Australia and you have the enough money to support your life during your stay here. And then it's the second question. Explain why the applicant wishes to study this specific course in Australia with this particular education provider, including their understanding of the requirements of the intended course and studying and living in in Australia, sorry. So basically, there are several points you need to mention. The first of all, you need to talk about the advantages of the education provider. It is necessary to make the explanations based on the actual courses selected by the students. That means you don't generally talk about a master of something or a bachelor of something. You need to talk about the bachelor of something or the master of something. And it's better to talk about the detailed curriculum, even the name of the courses, even the name of the subjects. That might help. And then if you have studied similar majors in your home country, you need to explain why you want to further your study of this major in Australia. And if the major in your home country is not related to the major in Australia, you need to provide a very reasonable explanation of changing the direction of your study. And we'll talk about that later. This is a kind of risk factors on the students when it really happens. The next question is how completing the course will be benefit to the applicant. So you need to make several statements here. You need to talk about whether the intended course is consistent with your past employment and academic history. If it is, it's good. You give the details of your past employment history and academic history, telling the visa officer that what part of your past employment or past study is connected to your new course. If if it doesn't, if your employment and academic history doesn't align with the course you're choosing, you need to make an explanation why you're changing that direction, and it needs to be very persuasive for you to get a grant. And then you need to talk about how would the intended course will help you obtain employment in your home country or another country, and your career potential in your home country or another country. So basically, you need to tell the visa officer that after the graduation, you will be able to find a good job. It's not just a job, it's a good job in your home country or any other country other than Australia. So what the immigration department want is that they want to see students leaving Australia. So you need to show them you have a good career potential outside Australia. We'll talk about that later, how we can achieve that. And then you need to talk about potential level of salary in the home country or another country. You must show effort of research when you're discussing this topic. And we'll touch on what kind of effort of research is preferred. So next question is other relevant matters. If you do have issues listed here, you need to talk about it. For example, if you have previous visa refusal, cancellation, overstaying in any countries, you need to talk about why and why it is not a sign that you will do that again in Australia. And then if you have previous incompletion of any courses in Australia. So if the student have changed courses without completing the first one, then you need to discuss it and telling the visa officer why you did so. And then you need to address all the significant study gaps. For example, if you stayed at home for over six months or 1 year, you need to tell the visa officer why was that. And then you need to address all the course changes, especially changes to unrelated course. For example, you were studying accounting, then you change to nursing. You need to kind of explain that why you are making that kind of drastic changes. And then you need to address all the illogical course progression. For example, like downgrading or concurrent course loads. Downgrading is like before your first course is in a higher level, for example, in bachelor, and then you're downgrading to a diploma. Or if you are if you have concurrent COEs, like you're doing the two separate COE courses at the same time. That might happen in some rare occasions, but it won't happen a lot. But in a very rare situation, you might encounter this kind of things. Um, and then you need to give the case officer a brief introduction of your study records, if any, in Australia. Just use the same format. And then that's the major questions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 5 major questions of the genuine student criteria. And when applying for a student visa, there will be questions in the application form asking you to answer these. And there is a word limit. Usually it's 150 words for each question. But in the real practice, we highly suggest that you just ignore those word limits. You can always prepare a separate genuine student statement and address all the above issues in details and attach to the end of the application. And because there are laws that exist, once you upload a more detailed genuine student statement, the case officer is bound by law to read that letter and to consider all the information inside it. If in any case, as a visa officer didn't really read your GS statement carefully, he might made a mistake. And if the student is unlucky and got a refusal, we might be able to turn it over. But usually that won't happen. The case officer are usually highly trained. They will look at your GS statement in details. So it is very important for every case to have a separate GS statement document uploaded. And in the application form, if you don't want to write too many words, you just tell the case officer, please refer to the attached GS statement, and that's okay. And then we have talked about, we have encountered several times, like here, showing the effort of research. What are the effort of research? There could be a couple of things that can show the effort of research. First of all, you talk about details. You talk about details in the exact name of something, like the name of the course, name of the subject, and you talk about numbers. You talk about the exact time length of the study or the number of units in this curriculum. And you talk about these things. And then effort of research can be evidence. For example, if you refer to published news, you put reference to a news, that can also be effort of research. If you put reference to job advertisements, it's also a good kind of effort of research, especially when you're talking about beneficial course benefit to your future career. So basically, when you try to prepare a genuine student statement, it is very important to stick to the detailed issues that might happen, and then be creative regarding issues. Then, at last, we're talking about a bit of experience of mine. How do I assess my students? I generally would use a risk factor model. So I kind of define some kind of factors that may brings little red flags from the visa officers, and I list them, and I see how many factors that my potential clients can bump into. So first of all, we got age. It's very obvious if this guy is 2 to 4 years older than the most common admission age, it might be a problem. Not that big, but it might be a problem. So usually, if a student graduated from high school, he goes directly to the university. Then the bachelor's admission age should be around 18 or 19. So if he's much older than that, then that could be a problem. And the usual master's admission age may be around 22, 23. Then if the student is 26 or 27, then there could be a problem, but it may not be that big. But if the student is 5+ years older than the most common admission age, it could be a big problem. Then you need to talk about it, why you're doing that, why you are applying for this education after so many years. And then it's the language factor. If the student doesn't have any language test result, could be a problem. Or he's packaged with a very long period of ELICOS, like 40 weeks, 50 weeks. It could be a problem. It could bring concerns to the case officer. And then it's the provider selection may be an issue. If a student is enrolling into a low-ranking provider, that could be a problem. Usually, a group of 8 university is perfect. And if the student is applying for a low-ranking university like ACU, then there could be a problem there. And then there's study record issues. If the study record shows a lot of problem, like frequent course change or any incompletion, that may become a problem. And the last factor is the immigration record issue, like previous incompliance of visa or previous refusals. For example, if a student is applying for a student visa, but he was refused an Australian visitor visa before, that is also a problem. And then if a student got any visa cancellations before, that's a big problem. So those are the key factors I've summarized for my own practice. And how do I decide the risk level? So usually if the student is having any of the underlying factors, it can be a high risk case. High risk case means you need extensive works on your genuine statement, on your genuine student visa statement. And then if you're having any two of the non-underlying factors, it's a medium risk. You still need attention to it, maybe provide evidence or need strong GS statement. And then if you're having only one of the non-underlying factors, it's a medium to low risk. Usually, you don't really need that much efforts on your genuine statement. Just keep an eye on the student, see if you can make the applications better, like giving him a little bit better education provider, then may counterbalance this factor. And if a student has none of the factors above, it's a low risk. So the low risk student is the immigration department's ideal profile of a higher education applicant. So you can use that as a benchmark, add on those risk factors. And then a little bit advice on mitigating strategy in your genuine student statement. So for high and medium risk applications, you need detailed explanations regarding each factor. Just identify those factors, and you need to have explanations explicitly in your GS on each of those factors. For example, if you think this student's age is a bit too old, you need to talk about why he's applying for this school or university at this age, you need to talk about age. If there is there is a factor involved like language, then he needs to talk about language. Why I don't have a language test result? Why I am packaged with a very long period of aliquots. You need to at least talk about it. And then, if you have like professional or academic background issues, your course is not aligned to your background, you need to talk about reason first, and then you need to talk about the benefit of the course. Essentially, the practice I recommend, highly recommend, is to put references. You need to put references to statistics, published news, job advertisements, salary surveys. These things are highly recommended in the benefit of the course chapter to talk about what kind of a good job, what kind of career potential you have after completing this course. And then if you're medium to low risk case, just focus on the explanation of the benefit of the course. And reference to the above evidence is also highly recommended. So basically, that's the end of the training for the student visa today. It's a brief introduction and a detailed breakdown of genuine student criteria. We will hand you guys this PowerPoint slides, and you can take notes on these, especially these blue bullet points under the GS criteria. And these blue points are the ones I have summarized. So basically, each blue point may represent a refusal letter I've encountered in the past. Every student, you may encounter a visa officer that wants to be picky on you. And if they want to refuse you, they will say something like, okay, you didn't research the home country enough. So that means you didn't do these first two bullet point enough. Then you don't have enough family ties in home country. Then that means you didn't do this bullet point well. So basically, every bullet point is a reason to refuse you. So keep an eye on that and try to look at students' risk factors and try to give them a basic picture of the risk level and then decide what to do in their genuine student statement. Okay, that's pretty much it. Let's see the questions.
Very good session. I learned a lot of new things today. I think there's a lot of questions. A lot of
Yeah,
questions.
yeah, yeah. Let's do it one by one.
Yeah.
Probably. Let's look at the first one. Can I ask about the 1, 2 to 9 questions? Yes. What is the
So
document checklist does not mention evidence of financial capacity? Is it advisable still providing it? Yes, we highly recommend doing so because the case officer is getting very picky in recent, especially in 2024. They might get pickier. So just don't wait until they ask for. Just give them what they are really like to see. Singapore considered English speaking country? No, it's not, sadly. Uh, If college made own English assessments such as the internal English replacement test and student pass it, does he still need to provide any English evidence again? Yeah, that's exactly the situation I've talked about. You don't have to provide it, but the case officer has the right to request a new test to be taken. So you gotta think twice on that. Once the case officer requests it, you have to provide it. You can't say that the school has waived it. The school only waived the academic requirement. It didn't waive the visa requirement. And then student pay the tuition fee in full. just showing the numbers amount to cover their living costs and home travel, let's say total. Yeah. Uh, Theoretically, it is like it is calculated like that. You can like deduct any amount already paid uh to the university in your financial capacity evidence. But as I say, that's the minimum requirement. So uh, it's better not to do so. But if you do so, you need to look at the student's risk level. If the student risk level is low, then it's probably okay. If the student risk level is high, he bumped into several like underlying factors, then you got to be careful. And then should bank reference accompanied by 3-month bank statements next year? Uh, Usually don't. Usually don't. A bank deposit certificate should be enough, proving that you have the balance until a certain time. You don't really need a bank statement showing the transactions, unless you want to prove to the department that your family has a very good income. Then you can use the bank statements. It's also a very good evidence to prove that. Uh, if the student is an undergraduate from Aussie or transfer from another Aussie campus, do they still need IELTS? No, they don't. They are waived. There is even if they um, even if they don't finish the degree, as long as they finished a big part of the degree, like 1 year or 2 years of the degree in Australia, they will be waived for the IELTS requirement on visa. Tuition fee. Next one, tuition fee funding evidence. Will the students decide program acceptance from the semester fee may suffice? Usually the tuition fee we refers to is the tuition fee for the first year, first academic year. So you need to prove that you at least have the money to pay for the whole year study. It is better if you do have money, just put the whole program fee into it. If you don't, just 1 year. How if students have a gap year after they graduate from high school, more than 2 years gap? That depends. The gap year is a risk factor that we mentioned. You need to talk about what you did in these 2 gap years and what motivates you to in these 2 gap years that motivates you to apply for this certain course. So anyway, you can't tell that the visa office that you did nothing in these 2 years. So you need to connect the gap year to the course. It's either like doing some sundry jobs, like part-time jobs or volunteering or internships. You can put in something like that, but just don't tell the case officer that you're doing nothing in these 2 years. Otherwise, if you don't do if you tell the case officer you didn't do anything these 2 years, the case officer might have suspicion on your intention to study here in Australia because you don't have the interest to like to make academic progress. Do we have the slides after the session? Yes. Do students needs to provide a criminal record from the local police? No. In most of the cases, students don't need to submit a criminal record certificate or something like that to get a visa grant. Student visa is a little bit different from other visas, but you need to make declarations on your uh, on your application form saying that you don't have a criminal record. If the students apply for visitor visa rejected first time, receive visitor visa granted second time, what are the risks for students to apply for a student visa later on? First, the refusal is still the refusal history is still a risk, but you need to look at the reasons of first refusal. Was it a genuine visitor refusal? If the first refusal is that the case officer didn't believe that you're a genuine visitor, that may comes to a problem. You need to dig into that. Was it because of the financial connection to the home country, or was it because of other reasons? So you find the utmost factor buried underneath the refusal. You may notice that it might comes to a factor in the GS, and then you discuss it. How about Alico's age? Uh, I don't really understand that. So Alicos doesn't really have any age problem. That doesn't have any age limit. Any age can apply. However, there is age risk factors here, because there isn't any like usual or common admission age for this kind of study, right? So generally, the department expect this kind of study to be either very young age, or there is like a strong career need for this training. Can we apply for Alico's only course for a year? Yes, you can, but the grant rate is very low. If the student applied for a visitor visa of another country and was refused, but he forgot to clarify in GS as well in the application, what should the student do now? You probably just let it pass. Student visa didn't really scrutinize that strictly after the grant of the visa. If the visa has been granted, you just let it go, and then you declare it in your next application, saying that you made a mistake in the previous one, and then you explain it. And then, would it be possible to receive the slides after the training session? Yes, if the students older than 25, they have continuous career, what will be advice applying Alicos? I can't really give I can't really give you detailed advice, but you can put your students' situation into those uh, questions. Look at those bullet points. See if you can pretend that you are a case officer. See if you want to refuse the students. Do you have a strong argument? If you have a really strong argument, then there's a problem there. Uh, Assessment level will still be there. I don't really understand what this assessment level is, but let's look at the next one. If the student has a family, say 25 years old, and he wants to study master's degree, yeah, it's a good practice. Apply first and then apply for the subsequent entrant visa. For all the applications nowadays, in the past, we probably recommend do it together. But for nowadays, if a student really wants to bring the family member here, we strongly recommend to apply first by himself. Otherwise, there may be a problem of intention to return. If the students only apply for himself, that means there is a family member remains still in the home country. That's kind of a motivation for him to return to the home country. It's a little good thing for the visa officer to consider. So at least for the primary applicant, the visa risk is low. Can uncle, aunt, brother, sister be financial sponsor? Brother and sister can be good financial sponsor. It's just like parents. Uncle and aunt is a little bit weaker. So you might need to talk about more in your GS why uncle and aunt. Uh, in the case here, sorry, but I probably won't be able to give you advice on a detailed case. But generally, if it's about OSHC, we found that on the cover classified as a single cover. All right. A single cover is different from a family cover, so you probably need to confirm with the healthcare provider. You need to make sure it's a family one. As far as I am concerned, if I am applying for a 408 visa, and the guy is bringing his family, I would ask my clients to purchase a family visa, family OVHC health policy that's stating, uh, that is, have the words family covered, not just a single cover. What if the students takes a course that is not aligned with their academic background? They have to prove the document. They don't have to prove the document. They need to explain what makes them make this big change in their academic direction and what are the benefits. The general logic is you tell the case officer why you make the change, and you tell the case officer why this change is correct, is good for you. If the student is 32, wants to study master in Australia, have to provide statement to provide why he wants to start here. Yeah. Is that high possible the students will get the visa? I cannot say the possibility because I don't know the other details of the students. There could be many possibilities. The student needs to take IELTS if he or she applying credit transfer from Monash University, Malaysia. Usually not. Uh, Usually you just go with the university's requirement. If the if university doesn't require a language test to be taken, then you should be okay to just submit a visa without the language test. But you need to be prepared. Uh, Once the case officer requests it, you have to sit in the test. They will give you like 2 or 3 months to do the test, but you need to do it. My student initially had a visitor visa, applied for a student visa, was denied. This raises questions whether he has a chance of being approved. Resubmits its student visa. Right, it's a high-risk case and low grant possibility for this specific student. And student is currently RMIT Vietnam and wants to study year 2 in Melbourne. Her IELTS certificates expires 1 month before the commencement date, but it's still valid before the visa application. No new IELTS test needed. You just make sure the IELTS test is valid at the day of application, then that's enough. If the student were to arrive in Australia a few days earlier before their OSHC starting date, they still need to pay additional charges for the OSHC. Yes, they will. Otherwise, they will breach the student visa condition. If they are very unlucky and meet a strict officer at the border, they will be their student visa will be really get it. That generally means you have community roles. For example, you are a regular volunteer in the local community, or you participate a lot in a local social organization. And not many people have that, so don't worry about that. And also community ties can be professional ties, like your professional ties in the industry. not just within your employer, it's in the industry. If you're doing a one profession, you may know a lot of people in this profession in your home country. These people will bring you career future in your home country. Those are the things you need to bring out. And then, if a student has demonstrated financial capacity to cover tuition fee and living expenses for 12 months and will continue pursuing a bachelor degree with higher tuition fees, will the student need to show additional financial proof to confirm? It's better to do so. Usually, you can show them that their family has a good income, or their family has a lot of assets at their expense in the home countries, like the houses, real properties, or financial investment, things like that. If the student got refused beginning of 2024 and second apply in September 2024, this case will be high risk? Yes, will be. It is deemed a high risk case. You will need to look at the GS that you have prepared, see if any of those bullet points can kill the case. Is there a risk of the file has substantial assets but cannot demonstrate monthly income? That depends on the whole risk level of the case. If it's a low risk case, then it's okay. You don't need to prove monthly income. If it's a high risk case, then it may become a problem. Then a student who is in Australia with his family, spouse and child, can apply with 3 single OSHC instead of family OSHC. On visa side, the immigration department doesn't care. They don't care. They don't care what kind of OSHC they provided unless it covers as long as it covers 3 people, then it should be fine. However, in the real situation, if you buy 3 separated OSHC, you might not be able to get the chance get the right to claim the costs when you really are sick with the hospital. So you need to be careful with that. Age is 32, apply master, consider high risk student. Yeah, the age is a high risk factor. You need to think about the other situation of the students, see if you can make the case better. And then pathway. Regarding 45 visa, we probably will do a 45 visa session not long after. We can answer questions there. Visa for Myanmar students. I'm not quite sure when we'll allow visa for Myanmar students. Myanmar is currently, I think it's a high risk area. That really depends on the immigration departments. Students wants to extend their visa after graduating with an advanced diploma. We should study 1 more year to. Is currently employed with a monthly salary and employment agreement. Can she use her income as part of financial evidence? Uh, Someone is using salary in Australia to support the study. It's hard to tell. You need to look at the details. It can cause a problem. You may suggest to the visa officer that he wants to stay here to work rather than just study. Okay, we do have a bit of a question. Let's finish them all. One of my students' visa is going to expire in 3 months. However, the student has already received an offer from UTS if the visa application is submitted and the student is waiting for the visa grant. If visa is in this case, you don't have to worry. He should have a bridging visa for him to stay in Australia and study with UTS. Next one, if the student pays the tuition fee, including OSHC, Uni said it will send the policy to the student, then course will start. Is it possible to not include it in the application? Yes, it's you still have to declare that you have OSHC, and you need to upload the COE certificate instead of the policy certificate. If a student enters Australia before their OSC start date, no, they don't need to upload this additional to OSC to the immigration account. They can't do that either because the account is locked. They can't upload any documents after grant. They just need to purchase it and take the policy with them in case he or she was picked out by a border officer. A student enters Australia. How much would migration agent officer charge for the student visa application? So generally, well, the fees can depend drastically, can vary drastically, depending on the case. If it's a low risk case, it could be quite cheap. If it's a high risk, if it is a high risk case, it can be very expensive. Usually, the registered migration agent would charge like 300 something dollars an hour of work, and a high risk case may requires several hours of work. So that's the roughly the price range. And the advantages to engage migration agent. So basically, we know the criteria, and we can professionally try to look at the situation, look at the student's situation, and see what we can use to make this case better. However, we can't make up things, that doesn't exist. We can elaborate on some points once we discover it, but we can't make up situations for the students. If the student accompanied visa A20 with parents, yeah, they should be. A20. A20 visa is a TR, it's a temporary visa. You can't get domestic fees. They need to wait until their parents getting the permanent 801 visa. Offshore student 18 to 20-year-old wants to apply VET course. Yeah, it's a big question. Vet courses is taking a big hit now. The department don't really want to grant visas on those things. If they really want to apply for vet courses, they need to really stick to their career background and or the study background. And it's still even the background is aligned, it's still a high risk case. Okay, so that's pretty much today's training. Hope that helps. Thank you, guys.
Victor, there's still more questions actually. If you click
Oh,
the Q&A button, I think there's a little bit more questions there.
Q&A. Where is it?
Yep.
Yeah, slightly
I
more.
think everybody loves you.
I think some of the questions already, let me just take a look.
Some are already answered, but like there's a question regarding Form 1229, and it's just wondering if they need to get it certified.
The form
Yeah. For 1229. 1229, you need to prove two things. One, you have the custody of these guys who signed the form has the custody of the children. That means you need to provide the birth certificate proving that you're a father and mother. It needs to certified, or you can just find a NATI translator, stamp on it, translate it, then it's a certified document. And then you need the passports of the two people who signed the form, or the national IDs. And then Yeah, it's better to get it notarized or certified. If you don't really want to get it certified, just find a Nazi translator. Translate the documents. It's equal to a certified copy. Okay, any other?
There's another question in the chat now asking if we apply student visa 4 months before the intake, is it possible? Because on the
Yeah, it
email
is.
it
It is.
mentioned can't.
It is. We used to recommend students to apply within 4 months, but now we recommend students to do it as early as possible, as early as they can, because the immigration department can be very slow recent days.
So earlier the better. All right. That's a very
Yeah,
good point to
especially
make.
like uh, in our experience in 2024, January, February, sometime between June, July, and the end of the year. During these months, the Department of Home Affairs is really, really slow. So as early as possible.
Well noted. Well noted.
Yeah, we still have, I think, 3 more questions in the Q&A.
Oh, let's see. 2-year bachelor, one university in Australia, and change to another university, study 1.5 years. Needs to extend visa for a half year. Onshore application. No need to supply English test. As long as he finished 1.5 or 2 year of courses in the program, then it's enough for him to waive the subsequent English test in the subsequent application, in the subsequent student visa application. And then Vietnam economy developing, household still facing challenging financial status. So how can we provide financial proof of these students? I'm I'm not very familiar with the Vietnamese students, but I do have similar area the case in poor areas from China. Just use your imagination. You can use your creativity. You can show the ownership of the land or the farm. You can even show the picture. Show them how many sheep you have. Show them how large what the size of crops you're planting. You can even show them that, and then you can do some references on the newses, like the value of the land, value of the business, even the industry business. Just use your creativity. You can do that. We used to have people from Inner Mongolia. Their family doesn't. It's kind of like this. They're running. They're raising sheeps and cows. We just show them the ownership of those cows. And next one, risk of age. Low rank education providers are only on a case by case. Yes, it's actually a matrix. It's a matrix. All those factors are called, all those risk factors, I would like to call them like negative weighting. So if you do have a lot of positive weighting, like the alignment of the course, or you have really good career background, or you good career future, and you can sometimes counterweight those. So it's not necessarily an absolute ranking system. It's kind of more liquid system. You need to feel the matrix. That's just my experience talk. I summarized that during my past practice. So that probably will help you some. It may gives you a little bit different aspect of how we look at students, but you don't necessarily kind of strictly apply to those factors. You may have your own, even have your own risk factors. It's just a weighting system. You have a lot of negative weights, see how many negative weights the students can bump into, and then you look at the students' situation and see how many positive weights you can find from the students and try to counterweight those negative weights.
Alrighty. There's two more questions that people are asking. One of them is actually a question I wanted to ask, but we can get to that soon. Susie is asking, can agent translate the documents and certified by agent only, or do they need to get a NATI translator or something like that?
It is the standard way to do it is to NATI test. And if you do have a national translation service in your home country, like in China, they have like government issue translator certificates. They can also do that. But NATI is the safest and quickest way.
I think it's recommended that they translate it under the
Just don't
Yep.
translate it without any stamps of the translation professionals. So every translation needs to have a stamp on it.
Got it.
Yep. And
Any more
the
questions?
last question from the chat, which is also actually a question I wanted to ask, because you mentioned earlier that they can go in earlier. When's the earliest time a student can actually come into Australia after the visa is granted? Is it okay if the student comes 3 months before the intake? That's the question.
That really depends. Usually 2 months is okay. 3 months, that depends on the department's border force. Sometimes they'll pick you up and ask you why you come here too early. Sometimes they just don't bother.
There's another question that came up just again. If I use a saving account to show enough funds to cover the entire cost, do I still
Mhm.
need to show documents to show my monthly income?
All right. Yeah, that comes to the old question. The counterweight, the weighting stuff. You need to look at the students' risk factors. How many negative weights you can find from the students? Does he need a income to counterweight those negative weights?
Mm.
If it doesn't really have a lot of negative weightings, then it's fine. If he does, you need to think about it.
Very good. So can I ask my question now, guys?
Sure.
So many questions from everybody.
It's
I have
okay.
one question that you mentioned earlier that it's really interesting. You mentioned that if you upload a document, then the officers are actually bound by law that they have to read the documents. And you
Yeah.
mentioned that if the case officer did not read and we got a rejection, then there's a chance that we can turn around the case. So I
Yeah.
have a question that if to what I know is that if you submit the visa application offshore, you cannot appeal the visa decision, right?
Yeah, there is another way to turn it around called visa case officer's administrative error. So
Oh,
if he doesn't read it, for example, there is a very, 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 very obvious mistake. For example, if you're a boy, then he thinks you're a girl, like this kind of thing that and this kind of mistake significantly affects the judgment. Then we can say he made a mistake. He didn't read it. We write it this way, and he said it was that way. Then we can argue that he made an error, and then a decision made under error is taken not happened. So he will just sometimes students can directly get a grant letter. Don't
oh,
need to go through the appeal service. But this is a very rare occasion.
yep.
These days, case officers are very detailed.
Mm-hmm. But how do they do this like argument? So they send an email back or
Yeah, you just send directly to the team, and then sometimes if they don't bother to return emails, you just tell that you can make complaints to the global feedback team. You
oh,
point out that it's an administrative error or error of law, then we'll have a chance to turn it over.
this is really interesting. I learned something new today.
Yeah. We've done it. We've done it a lot of times with other visas before. Very fun mistakes that the visa officers have made.
Interesting. I think there'll be a lot of
Yeah,
interesting stories from that one.
yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Okay, I can share with you in our next session, probably
very
not
good.
long after with the 45 visa.
Very good. Yeah, we have, I think, let's take this as the last question because I think we've taken too much of your time. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, last two questions because I think we take too much of your time. Um, what's if we don't end the questions now, there'll be too many questions. The question is, what's the risk of bringing the whole family to Australia? For example, parents study masters and children study in primary school.
It's a risk called intention to return to home country, lack of intention to return to home country. Uh,
Mm.
this used to be a big bullet point in the GT system. In current GS criteria, they say they removed that, but actually it still exists. We still get refusals saying similar things that we think you lack of intentions to leave Australia. They just changed the word. They don't say you lack of intention to return to home country. They say it in the other way. They say we think you're using your visa to achieve a de facto residency in Australia. They say it in another way.
Mm. Okay, and the final question of the day. Do you know how long
Appeal?
the process to appeal? I think it's like
It can be very long. It can be very long, like 200 to 300 days at least in the queue before this case is before a member to judge the case.
very interesting. So I think let's put it there. Thank you so much for your time today, Victor. I
No
learned a lot
problem.
personally
Happy to
myself.
help.
It's very
A lot of really good questions from the chat, a lot of great questions from you. And you shared a lot of things that even I myself learned. So I think it's a lot of great things that you guys shared. Really, thank you
No
so much.
problem.
Just a quick highlight to everyone, all the attendees, thank you so much for coming. If you have any questions, just feel free to ask any of the Yes Education team members, and then we can always ask Victor. And yeah, we heard your feedback. Yeah, let's just organize another session for 485 visa, maybe sometime later. I think we took too much of your time today. We really, really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for the information. I think everybody loves you as much as we love you here as well. So
No problem. Glad to help.
all right, great. I think we can conclude this session today. But yes, I think I'll definitely keep in mind that we might be able to conduct the 485 visa session very, very soon. And if there is, I'll definitely update you. All right. Okay.
thank you so much,
Thank
everybody.
you, everyone. Have a great weekend ahead.
Have a great week ahead. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Victor.
Thanks,
Bye,
Victor.
everybody.
See
Thank
ya.
you, Victor, Russell, and Tim for organizing
Goodbye.
this.
Everybody, have a great day.